Hey advisors, in this video training, we're going to break down some of the top new Zoom features that have come out in the last 12 months. That's all of 2021 and the back half of 2020, and learn how you can use different tricks, tips, and tools to be able to have much better Zoom meetings that lead to a seven-figure business. You ready? Let's get started. As you can see on my screen right here, I have the basic Zoom app interface. Now, it's pretty simple. You can choose to start a new meeting, join a meeting, schedule a meeting, or share your screen. Now, for the purposes of this training, what I'm going to do is give you the top tips for more powerful Zoom meetings. So there is so much to discover in the Zoom updates, but I thought it'd be better for you as an insurance or financial advisor to look at the features you would actually use instead of getting all geeked out with all of the features. So let's dive in. The part you're going to use the most is starting a new meeting. So we're going to go ahead and start a meeting and then dive into some of the features there. All right, so the first thing I want to point out is the headshot that you can upload so that if your camera's off, you present your best view. Now, I found this personally really helpful, especially attending other group mastermind meetings or client meetings where, let's say, nobody wants to turn on their camera. There is such a thing as Zoom fatigue, so you have to be prepared for that. So what I did is I went out and I got a professional photographer to do some headshots, and I uploaded my personal headshot instead of that ugly, initial that shows up, which is basically like a blue box or a purple box, and then your name. So if you'd like to learn how to do that, let's do that. All right, so to replace your headshot, the best way to do that is to go back to the initial dialogue. So over here in the top right-hand corner, and this is actually kind of a nice little feature here, you can see that I'm actually in a meeting, so the camera has turned red. So you're going to go ahead and click on that, and then go to My Profile. This is going to then direct you into the back end of your Zoom account. And then you just hover over your picture, and then you can select it by clicking change. And then if I had an image here, I could just pick the image and then upload it. I can resize it. I can change the way I show up a little bit. You can move this around and have a little bit of fun with it. Just get it centered so it's nice and professional. So if you followed any of my previous trainings, you know that I always recommend you have an updated professional headshot, something in the last 6 months, so that when you turn your camera on, there's a really close link between what your headshot is and how you actually look. One of the worst things to do is to have a headshot that is severely outdated, and then when you come on and you've got way more gray hair, or you're not as polished, or you've gained a bunch of weight, or you've lost a bunch of weight, you really want to keep it consistent. And what this does is create a series of micro commitments that build a bond between you and your prospect, especially if you're meeting for the first time. All right, now that we've covered that, let's dive into some of those Zoom features we were talking about. So there's nothing really new that's happened with the microphone feature, so we won't spend too much time on that. The next one is really where a lot of the features have come in, and that's in the video features. So we're going to go ahead and play with the video settings for a little bit, just to get you used to what's going on here. Hey, I'm on camera and I'm on Zoom. All right, so as you can tell right now, I probably have a virtual background, and you're absolutely right. And kind of my default is wood, so when I'm not doing any, business meetings and I'm doing some of the work in my volunteer work or family, I typically just keep a pretty simple background like that. We'll get to the virtual backgrounds in a second because they are huge in impacting the branding that you have, the presence that you bring to the screen, and really creating that top-notch first impression that you absolutely want, especially if you're doing a lot of coffee meetings using perhaps one of our Shift LinkedIn strategies where the first impression really, really matters. All right, so a couple of things I'm going to point out. If you've got multiple cameras, this is going to be really helpful because you can switch between different cameras that you might have. Now, for the purpose of this training, I'm going to stick with it. I use a HD Pro webcam done by Logitech. It's got 1080p quality. It's HD. It works really well. I'm pretty happy with it. Now, there's another feature that I've checked here, and that is the HD feature. Now, if you take a look here and I take it off, do you notice how the graininess has increased and the quality has actually gone down? If I uncheck original ratio, you could see that it, moves me a little closer. I'm a little grainier. So if you have the bandwidth and you've got a good camera, definitely check HD so you come in nice and sharp. And then I like to keep it to original ratio. Now this is just personal preference, but your ability to mirror your video like this just allows you to choose your best angle if you happen to have one. This touch up my appearance filter, people are so used to zoom these days that I would be careful to dial this thing all the way up. Now you see what happened to my skin? Like, let me show you the difference again. No filter, high filter, no filter. See how you can see a lot more of my gray hair, you can see a little more of my wrinkles, but if I go all the way here, kind of look like a baby, right? Be really careful because people can tell there's filters on. I mean, people are used to seeing a bunch of filters on social media, but I like to try to keep an authentic look as possible. This just kind of takes away some of the skin blemishes. So keeping it kind of down here in the bottom quarter is a pretty safe way. If you've got a low light environment, you definitely want to have this checked. Actually, you can tell I've actually got a high light environment. So when I click on this, I actually look paler than I am. So, story of my life. So I'll just go ahead and take that off. All right, next one is always display participant names on their video. I find this really helpful, especially if you're doing like a networking meeting or something of that nature. You want to have those little names show up instead of being like, yes, Miss in the purple blouse, right? It can be a little bit awkward. So I just leave that on as a default. I always leave turn off my video when joining a meeting because you never know what's going on. Maybe you're joining in a little bit early and you're still putting, a nice shirt on and you just don't want to be caught unawares. Next, always show video preview dialog when joining a video meeting. Yes, absolutely leave this feature on. What that allow you to do is when you log into a meeting, it's going to give you that little preview that allows you to kind of do a little mirror check, right? Like what we do in the mornings. We go to the bathroom before we head out the door, or we have a mirror by the door. We check, make sure everything's, nice and tight. We're looking good. Nothing's really out of place. That's a really helpful feature so that when you turn on your video, it's not like, you don't scare everybody, right? Next, hide non-video participants. Now, most people don't have this checked, but I'm going to give you a little presentation tip. Having given thousands of presentations and hundreds of Zoom meetings, I've always found that when I'm looking at a Zoom room where let's say I have 50 people there and only 10 have cameras, psychologically, it actually does something to you as a presenter. Believe it or not, it almost makes you feel like the people are not engaged. So thank you to the Zoom creators for creating this hide non-video participants. Because what it does is, let's say you have a room of 50 people, only 10 have their cams on. What you can do by clicking this box, it will hide visually. They're still there, but it will hide all those little black boxes. So you only see the people that are there. And then it looks more like an intimate experience, and you can focus on the visual reactions of the people that are doing, that actually are playing full out. They have their cameras on and they're engaged. Now, this is especially helpful if you're doing a webinar. I personally don't recommend that you show the cameras of your guests in a, let's say, a financial webinar. I prefer to do a one-to-many approach. The reason is you don't really know where people are going to show up from, whether they're in their car, whether they're not dressed properly. I've had people show up like with baseball hats, eating a bowl of eggs, a guy sitting in his garage, and it just didn't give a cool vibe to the rest of the meeting. So I always like to hide non-video participants, but if you're going to do a webinar, you don't need to worry about this because people will not even have the ability to turn on their cameras. Now here's another one that I actually don't turn on. It's called See Myself as the Active Speaker when you're speaking. Studies have shown that your face is one of the most compelling things that you will look at if you have the option to do so. So imagine, like, can you remember back in the day when in your high school yearbook, which is the first page you went to? After the girl, the guy that you liked, it was your picture, right? Or maybe it was your picture first, then you went to check everyone else out. And there's just something in the brain that is linked up to looking at our faces first. So what can happen is, although I'm looking at you in the camera right now, if I have this feature turned on, I might see my face and I might start looking down here and my eyes are drawn and now I'm not looking at the camera anymore. You see the difference? Looking at my picture, looking at the camera. Again, looking at my picture, looking at my camera. Do you see how that could be very distracting for your audience? It looks like you're not engaged, you're not paying attention. So ideally, you want to always be focused on the camera and not on your own face. Well, that's what we got for today. I hope you enjoyed this training. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next training.